Good morning, Emily. How's everything going with your TOEFL preparation?
Good morning, Professor Davis. It's going well, but I'm still struggling a bit with the speaking section. I feel like I freeze up when I have to respond quickly.
That's a common challenge, but with practice, you'll improve. Today, why don't we focus on simulating the speaking section? I'll ask you a question, and you can respond as if it's the real test.
That sounds great. I could use the practice.
All right, here's your question. Describe a place you visited that left a lasting impression on you. Why did it have that impact?
Okay, let me think for a moment. Well, one place that really left an impression on me was the Grand Canyon. I visited it 2 years ago, and the sheer size of it was overwhelming. It made me feel so small, but in a good way. I remember standing at the edge and just being in awe of the natural beauty.
That's a good start. You've described your experience well. Now, try to add more details. What specific aspects of the Grand Canyon did you find most memorable?
The colors were what really stood out to me. The way the sunlight hit the rocks and made them look almost red. And the silence, too. It was so peaceful, even though there were tourists around. I also remember hiking down a bit and getting a different perspective of the canyon from below. That experience made me appreciate nature in a way I hadn't before.
Excellent, Emily. You've included vivid details, and that's exactly what you want to do during the test. Just remember to keep your answers structured and focused.
Thank you, Professor. I'll work on that.
Now, let's try another type of question. This time, focus on expressing your opinion. Here's your prompt. Do you think technology has made our lives easier or more complicated? Explain your view.
That's an interesting question. I think, overall, technology has made our lives easier. It's allowed us to communicate faster, access information instantly, and even automate tasks that used to take a lot of time. For example, using apps like Google Maps to navigate makes traveling much simpler.
Good start. Now try to give a more balanced answer. Can you think of ways technology might complicate our lives as well?
Yes, I suppose technology can also make things more stressful. For instance, people are constantly checking their phones and emails, even during their personal time, so it becomes harder to disconnect. And sometimes having too much information can feel overwhelming.
Excellent. That's exactly the kind of critical thinking they're looking for on the TOEFL. You're showing that you can see both sides of an issue, and that's important. Just be sure to keep your answer clear and structured as you did.
I'll work on organizing my thoughts more. Thank you for the feedback. That sounds great. I could use the practice.
All right, here's your question. Describe a place you visited that left a lasting impression on you. Why did it have that impact?
Okay, let me think for a moment. Well, one place that really left an impression on me was the Grand Canyon. I visited it 2 years ago, and the sheer size of it was overwhelming. It made me feel so small, but in a good way. I remember standing at the edge and just being in awe of the natural beauty.
That's a good start. You've described your experience well. Now, try to add more details. What specific aspects of the Grand Canyon did you find most memorable?
The colors were what really stood out to me, the way the sunlight hit the rocks and made them look almost red. And the silence, too. It was so peaceful, even though there were tourists around. I also remember hiking down a bit and getting a different perspective of the canyon from below. That experience made me appreciate nature in a way I hadn't before.
Excellent, Emily. You've included vivid details, and that's exactly what you want to do during the test. Just remember to keep your answers structured and focused.
Thank you, Professor. I'll work on that.
All right, let's keep going. You're doing well so far. Let's move on to another common type of TOEFL speaking question, giving advice. Here's your prompt. A friend is planning to study abroad but is unsure about it. What advice would you give them?
Okay, if my friend were unsure about studying abroad, I would tell them to go for it. I studied abroad for a semester, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. It's an opportunity to learn about different cultures and gain independence and improve your language skills if you're going to a country with a different language.
Good. Now add some more details. Maybe explain how it benefited you personally.
Right. Well, I studied in Spain for 6 months, and not only did my Spanish improve, but I also made friends from all over the world. It helped me become more confident and open-minded. Plus, it looks great on a resume and can give you an edge in the job market.
That's exactly the kind of response that will score well on the TOEFL. You've given clear advice and backed it up with personal experience. Just remember to keep your pacing natural, like you're having a conversation.
Thank you, Professor. I'm feeling more confident about the speaking section.
Good to hear. Now, before we finish, do you have any questions or specific concerns you want to address?
Actually, yes. I'm a bit worried about the timing. Sometimes I feel like I don't have enough time to think before I start speaking, and I end up rushing my answer or leaving out details.
That's a valid concern. The TOEFL speaking section is fast paced, but the key is to practice thinking on your feet. One technique that might help is using a few seconds to mentally structure your answer before you start speaking. For example, think in terms of introduction, supporting details, and conclusion. Even just a few seconds of planning can make a big difference.
That's a good idea. I guess I've been jumping into my responses without organizing my thoughts first.
Exactly. And don't be afraid of short pauses. It's better to take a moment to gather your thoughts than to rush through your answer and miss key details. Practice will help you get more comfortable with this.
I'll definitely try that. I also wanted to ask about the integrated speaking tasks, where you have to listen to a lecture or read something and then respond. Those feel a bit overwhelming.
I understand. The integrated tasks require you to process information quickly. The best approach is to take notes while you're reading or listening. Jot down key points or main ideas, and then when it's time to speak, refer back to your notes to guide your response.
That makes sense. I'll work on improving my note taking skills too.
Good plan. And remember, the more you practice, the easier it'll become. You're already making great progress, so keep up the hard work.
Thanks, Professor. I really appreciate all your help.
All right, let's keep going with the speaking practice. This time, I'll give you a prompt from the independent speaking section. Here's the question. Some people prefer to live in a big city, while others prefer to live in a small town. Which do you prefer and why?
I think I'd prefer to live in a big city. There's always something to do, whether it's cultural events, restaurants, or shopping. Plus, living in a big city usually means better access to job opportunities and public transportation.
That's a good start. Now try to expand on your reasoning. What specific aspects of city life appeal to you the most?
Well, I love the diversity you find in big cities. You get to meet people from all over the world, and it's easier to experience different cultures. For example, in New York, you can visit different neighborhoods and feel like you're traveling to another country. Also, the convenience of having everything nearby, like restaurants, museums, and theaters, makes life exciting.
Great, Emily. Now let's think about how you could make your response even stronger. Can you talk about some challenges of living in a big city and why you're still willing to live there despite those challenges?
Sure, living in a big city can be stressful because of the noise, traffic, and high cost of living. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, especially when the pace is so fast. But for me, the opportunities and experiences outweigh those negatives. I'd rather deal with the hustle and bustle than live in a quiet place where I might feel bored or isolated.
Excellent. You've covered both the positives and the challenges, which makes your answer well-rounded. You're showing that you can consider both sides, and that's important in TOEFL responses.
Thanks, I'm starting to feel more comfortable with these questions.
Good. Now let's try a question that involves describing a process. Here's your next prompt. Describe the steps you would take to plan a trip abroad. Go ahead when you're ready.
All right, to plan a trip abroad, the first step I'd take is to choose my destination. I'd research different countries, consider the weather, cultural experiences, and what activities I want to do. Once I decide on a location, I'd move on to booking flights and accommodations. I'd look for affordable options and check reviews to make sure I'm staying somewhere safe and comfortable.
Good start. Now, don't forget to talk about what happens after booking. What else do you need to prepare? All right, Emily, let's treat this like a real TOEFL speaking test now. You'll have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to answer each question. Here's your first one. Some people prefer to get up early in the morning and start their day, while others prefer to stay up late and work at night. Which do you prefer and why? You may begin when you're ready.
I prefer to get up early in the morning because I feel more productive during the day. The quiet morning hours allow me to focus on tasks without distractions. For example, I like to go for a run or read before starting my work, which helps me feel energized. Additionally, when I start early, I feel like I have more time to accomplish things, and by the end of the day, I'm not as stressed or rushed. Overall, starting my day early gives me a sense of accomplishment and balance.
Great answer, Emily. Clear and well organized. Now let's try an integrated task, similar to what you'll encounter on the exam. I'll read a short passage and you'll listen to it. After that, you'll have to summarize the main idea and state your opinion. Here's the passage. Many people believe that technology has isolated individuals by encouraging them to spend more time on their devices and less time interacting face to face. However, others argue that technology has brought people closer together by allowing them to communicate instantly, regardless of their physical location. Now, summarize the main point of the passage and give your opinion on the role of technology in social interactions. You have 20 seconds to prepare.
The passage discusses two viewpoints about technology. On one hand, it suggests that technology isolates people by reducing face-to-face interaction. On the other hand, it argues that technology has brought people closer by enabling instant communication across distances. In my opinion, technology does bring people closer together, especially through platforms like video calls and messaging apps. These tools allow people to maintain relationships, even if they live far apart. However, it's important to find a balance and still make time for in-person interactions.
Very well done, Emily. That was a solid response with a clear structure. You addressed both perspectives and gave a balanced opinion. Let's try one more. Describe a time when you worked on a project with other people. What role did you play in the group, and what was the outcome? You'll have 15 seconds to prepare.
Right. After booking flights and a place to stay, I'd make sure my passport is up to date and check if I need a visa for the country I'm visiting. I'd also research any health precautions, like vaccines or medications I might need. Then, I'd create an itinerary, listing all the places I want to visit and activities I want to do each day.
Excellent. Now try to wrap it up with some final preparations you do before actually leaving for the trip.
Okay, the last thing I'd do before leaving is pack. I'd make sure to bring clothes appropriate for the weather, and I'd pack my essentials, like toiletries and travel documents. I'd also exchange some currency if needed and make sure I have my credit card with me. Finally, I'd double-check my itinerary and flight details before heading to the airport.
Well done, Emily. That was a clear and structured answer. You included all the necessary steps and explained each one in detail. Just make sure to stay calm under the time limit.
Thank you, Professor. I'm feeling a bit more confident with this now.
Good to hear. Let's try one more. All right, Emily, let's continue. Here's another question. Describe a time when you faced a challenge and how you overcame it. What did you learn from the experience? You'll have 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to answer.
A challenge I faced was during my final year of university when I had to manage multiple projects at the same time. I was working on my thesis, group projects, and preparing for exams all at once. It was overwhelming, but I overcame it by creating a strict schedule and breaking each task into smaller steps. I learned the importance of time management and how to prioritize effectively. This experience taught me that with proper planning and discipline, even the most overwhelming challenges can be handled.
Good response. Now let's try a question where you need to express a preference. Here's your next prompt. Do you think students should be required to take physical education classes in school? Why or why not? You have 15 seconds to prepare.
I believe students should be required to take physical education classes in school. Physical activity is important for maintaining good health, and it helps students develop lifelong habits of staying active. It also provides a break from academic stress and improves concentration. Furthermore, sports and physical activities can teach teamwork, discipline, and time management. Overall, physical education is essential for both mental and physical well-being.
Excellent answer, Emily. Now let's try another integrated task. I'm going to read a short passage, and after that you'll give your summary and opinion. Here's the passage. Some universities are considering requiring all students to complete community service as part of their graduation requirements. Supporters argue that this will help students develop a sense of responsibility and strengthen their ties to the community. However, opponents believe that mandatory service might detract from students' academic focus and place an unnecessary burden on their already busy schedules. Now summarize the main points and give your opinion on whether universities should require community service for graduation. You have 20 seconds to prepare.
The passage discusses two viewpoints on requiring community service for graduation. Supporters believe it helps students develop responsibility and build connections with the community, while opponents think it might distract from academics and add stress to students' schedules. In my opinion, community service should be encouraged but not mandatory. While it's valuable for personal growth, students should have the flexibility to focus on their academic goals or choose service activities that fit into their schedules.
Good job, Emily. You summarized both sides of the argument clearly and gave your opinion. However, let me give you a few tips to make your speaking responses even stronger and more accurate for the TOEFL speaking exam.
Sure, I'd love some feedback.
First, remember to focus on structure. The examiners want to see a clear beginning, middle, and end in your answers. Start with an introduction that directly answers the question, then provide supporting details or examples, and finally, give a brief conclusion. This structure will help you stay organized and ensure you hit all the important points.
Got it. I'll focus on organizing my thoughts better.
Another tip is to vary your vocabulary. Instead of repeating the same words, try using synonyms or phrases to show a range in your language skills. For example, instead of saying I believe over and over, you can use in my opinion or I feel that. It makes your response more engaging and shows that you have a strong grasp of English.
That's a great point. I'll work on using different expressions.
Also, don't rush. You're doing a good job of pacing, but remember it's okay to pause briefly to think. It's better to take a moment to gather your thoughts than to rush through your answer and lose clarity. Speaking slower also makes your pronunciation clearer.
I've been worried about the time limit, so I think I tend to rush sometimes.
That's normal. Just practice keeping a steady pace. If you prepare well, you'll find that 45 seconds is more than enough time to give a solid response.
I'll practice pacing myself better.
And lastly, make sure your answers are specific. You gave some good details earlier, but always try to include real-life examples or personal experiences when possible. This adds depth to your answers and helps you stand out.
That makes sense. I'll definitely keep these tips in mind.
Good. You're making excellent progress. With more practice, you'll be fully prepared for the speaking section. All right, Emily, let's put those tips into action with another question. Here's your next prompt. Some people think it's better to live in one place their whole life, while others prefer to move around and live in different places. Which do you prefer and why? You'll have 15 seconds to prepare.
I prefer to live in different places rather than staying in one location my whole life. Moving around allows you to experience new cultures, meet different people, and broaden your perspective. For example, when I studied abroad in Spain, I gained a new appreciation for their way of life, and it made me more open-minded. Living in different places can also provide more opportunities, whether it's for work, education, or personal growth. Overall, it keeps life exciting and helps you develop as a person.
Great, Emily. That was a clear and structured response, and you added a personal example, which is exactly what you should be doing. You also varied your vocabulary, which was good to hear.
Thanks. I tried to keep your tips in mind.
I can tell, and you're getting better. Let's focus on pacing now. Remember to slow down a bit so your pronunciation stays clear, especially with more complex ideas. Shall we try another one to work on that?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, here's your next question. Do you think it's more important to be a good listener or a good speaker? You have 15 seconds to prepare.
I believe it's more important to be a good listener than a good speaker. When you listen well, you understand others better, which helps you respond more thoughtfully. For example, in group projects at university, I noticed that the best leaders were the ones who listened to everyone's ideas before making decisions. Being a good listener also shows respect and builds trust in relationships. While being a good speaker is important, I think listening is the foundation of effective communication.
Excellent response, Emily. You stayed calm, your pacing was much better, and you gave a strong, clear opinion supported by an example. That's exactly how you should approach these questions.
Thank you, I felt more in control that time.
It definitely showed. Just remember, when you're feeling pressured, it's okay to pause and think before answering. Your structure is improving, and with more practice, you'll be able to manage the time and complexity of your answers even better.
I'll keep working on that. This practice is really helping.
I'm glad to hear that. You're doing great. And with this level of effort, you'll be ready for the TOEFL speaking section in no time.